were able to have some lunch with them. And Mom wanted me to let you guys know that she does appreciate the prayers you guys have sent, and does also appreciate the card, Get Well card. So she wanted me to mention that this evening to you all. And family appreciates that as well. My sister and I appreciate the prayers and concerns you guys have had with Mom. This evening, as we continue our What's in the Name series, and we've been looking at the different I am statements that we have seen in John, and eventually we're going to get into all 7 of them. Greg was trying to skip at least 3 weeks ahead of me, Lord willing, if we go that far with the I am the way, the truth, and the life, but it's all right. We'll get there, though, Greg. You just want to jump right into that. We'll get there. Last week, if you remember, we did talk about I am, the statement I am the bread of life. And we looked at John chapter 6, verse 35. This evening, if you have your Bibles with you, we will eventually get into John chapter 8, and verse 12 is where we'll eventually be. And then we just, again, wanting to look at the I am statements that we are going to come across, Lord willing, in the next couple of weeks. We have I am the door, I am the good shepherd, I am the resurrection and the life, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then number 7, found in chapter 15, I am the true vine. All these statements that we see here tell us something about Jesus' understanding about himself, who he was, what God had in store for him, what his mission on earth here was. We know that Christ beginning each statement with this phrase, I am, that we looked at several weeks ago now, it tells us even more about Jesus Christ. We know that it's an echo of the ancient name of God given to Moses at the burning bush, where Moses says, who are you, basically? And God says, tell him that I am sent you. We see this Yahweh. I am who I say I am, is what God is saying. And so in these statements that Christ makes in the book of John, Jesus is revealing different aspects of who he is, different aspects of his character. Then taken all together, they are also identifying Jesus with God, identifying you're going to sleep or something. Identifying Jesus with his Father. And tonight, we will be looking at this second statement, where Christ says, I am the light of the world. And in John chapter 8, verse 12, it says, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. Now, Jesus made this statement in a dramatic setting. It was the final statement of his message on the last night of the Feast of Tabernacles in Jerusalem. At this time, people from all over Israel would have been coming to celebrate this festival that is a memorial of God's blessings on their ancestors during their wandering in the wilderness after the Exodus from Egypt. People would have been living in tents. The people that would have traveled, they would have been living in tents. They would have been living in shelters. And they would have been there for about a week to be a part of this festival, to be a part of this remembering of the experience that their ancestors had went through. And as we all know, during the Exodus, we know that God had guided the children of Israel by a cloud in the daytime and a pillar by night, correct? I said that right, yes. I had to make sure I was correct. And this is how God guided the children of Israel through the wilderness. And so to commemorate this guidance of God, there was a ceremony in the Feast of Tabernacles. And this is something that I hadn't really put together with this particular story. It was kind of new to me. But when I was reading it, it made all kinds of sense. So during the Festival of Tabernacles, there was something that was called the illumination of the temple. And each night of this festival, what would happen is there would be 4 great big lamps that would stand 75 feet high. Closest thing I could picture with these candles would have been like a great big old Hanukkah candle, is what I best can describe it as. And they lit these up in the courtyard of the temple every single night of the festival. And these were considered to be a memorial to the light that God had been to his people in the dark. Uncertainty of the wilderness wandering. And the moment of their illumination, it set off a great celebration during this time. They would break out in song, they'd break out in dance, and that lasted late into the night. It would look something like this. I don't know if it's as bright as it is on here, but it would light up the entire temple. It was very bright. And it would have looked, like I said, something like this. It was said that the light from these lamps were so bright, it penetrated every corner of the courtyard. The illumination from these imposing temple lamps symbolized 2 realities then. The first was the reality of the light of all lights, the visible presence of God that filled the first temple, which Solomon built. Let's go ahead and look at that, 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 through 11. 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 through 11. 1 Kings chapter 8, verses 10 through 11. It says, when the priest withdrew from the holy place, the cloud filled the temple of the Lord. And the priests could not perform their service because of the cloud, for the glory of the Lord filled his temple. So that was one of the symbolization of these lamps. The other one is this great light that Isaiah had spoke about in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. That spoke of this great light that was soon to come and bring light to those that were spiritually dead and dwelling in darkness. And then you have Jesus making this statement, I am the light of the world. So imagine the drama of Jesus stepping forward in that setting to call out in a loud voice, well, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. It was as if he said God's presence was a pillar of fire for Moses and our ancestors, simple imagery that people would have related to right then and there. Bright lights in the temple, walks out, comes out, says, well, I'm that great light of life. Let's look at Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. And we'll see Jesus' use of the image of light was unmistakable. It was something that the people here in Jerusalem would have picked up on. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 2. It says, the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. Now, if we were to continue in this particular chapter, we would skip down to verse 6. The passage does go on with the familiar words of the prophecy of the Messiah being born. Verse 6, it says, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given. So Jesus' references to himself as light would have been an unmistakable thing for people to pick up on. For us, it brings the promised Messiah. For us, it brings to mind the familiar words of the opening verse of John's Gospel, John chapter 1, where he speaks that he is, in him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John chapter 1, verses 4 through 5. So we see either way the message would be clear. Jesus was identifying himself with the ancient image of God as light shining through the darkness. He had to know how that language would be heard and interpreted. May have went something along these lines with some of the people that didn't believe or wanted to fight who Jesus was saying he was. They may have said, Yahweh alone is the great I am. Is the creator, he is the creator and bringer of light. Yahweh alone is the one we celebrate for illuminating our way through the darkness with a pillar of fire at night. Who are you, or who is this who claims to be the light bringer again, right here in our midst? But then we get to another occasion where we see this thought of light. And it's not Christ saying, I am the light of the world, but he's putting it back on his followers. In Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16. He says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew chapter 5, 14 through 16. So the thought that he should equate himself with the light bringer is astounding enough. It surely had the pilgrims that were there at the feast in Jerusalem dumbfounded at his remarks, and they were confused. But here in Matthew chapter 5, he says to his followers, not only am I the light of the world, you are the light of the world also. You need to make your light shine in the world. With that, let's pause there and just reflect on that thought. You are the light and influence in those that we come in contact with. We may feel small and outnumbered in this culture that we discussed a little bit this morning, where people are not turning to God and we feel outnumbered at times. But that is not the case. Our influence can be greater than we can even imagine if we turn to God and allow Him to use us in the way that He wants us to be used. I think we have some parables about things being small that grow into big things, if I recall. Mustard seed, the yeast, different metaphors that Christ uses of this is how I can use something small to make it big. Also, another quality of light is the greater the darkness, the greater the impact of a single light. I don't know if you guys have ever been spelunkering in a cave or not, but way back in 8th grade, if I recall, 7th or 8th grade, our environmental science teacher took us on a trip. And that was one of the things that we did was we went into this cave. I think she just wanted to get rid of us, maybe. I don't know. But we went into this cave, and we got to a certain part of the cave where they told us to turn out our headlights and then try to see what was in the front of our face. Do you think that we were able to see the hand that was in front of our face with everything black? We were not, were we? Then she turned on one light, I think is what happened. She turned on one light. And what happens to that darkness when just one light came on? Do you think I was able to see my hand in front of my face then, at that point? I was, wasn't I? And then, of course, we all turned on our lights and we could see the whole cave again. One single light in darkness can make a huge impact. We, though, can't be intimidated by the darkness that is coming around us. We have to keep shining. Okay, those are the qualities of light. But what is our purpose in the world? What is our job? Well, one of our jobs, one of our missions is to be a visible source of light. We need to get out from under that bulb. Jesus did not say that you are the light of just the George Street building. That's all you're the light of. He said no. He said you are the light of what? The light of the world, didn't he? That goes beyond these walls. And it goes out those doors to our workplaces, our families, and such. You are the light of the world. If you are a follower of Jesus, people should notice that you are a follower of Jesus. They should know that by the way that we speak, by the way that we act, by the way that we work, by the way that we conduct our own business, handle our money, relate to others, play golf, go boating, go fishing, even driving your car. Don't you love the ones that when you're in traffic and they're honking and beeping and cussing at you, and then they go by and you're like, then they have that sticker that says, Jesus loves you, or something along those lines. You're like, okay. We are known by the fruit of our lives. Second purpose. Not only do we need to be a visible source of this light, but we need to be an attractive source of this light. We can't have people, and I'm not saying attractive as in the good looks part either, because then I'd be failing on that. But attractiveness as this guy's a nice guy, this girl is a nice girl, I want to hang out with her. She's got something different than what the rest of the world has. Matthew 5, verse 16. Matthew 5, verse 16. Let's go ahead and look at this again. Matthew chapter 5, verse 16. It says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds, and then glorify your Father in heaven. There's two words that go with good in the Greek. There is agathos, which means good and quality, excellence. And then there's kalos, that means something is not only excellent, it is also beautiful and attractive. Kalos is the one that is used in this verse. When Jesus was here in the flesh, people were attracted to him, weren't they? The majority of people did not run away from Christ. He was doing miracles. They wanted to see what was going on, didn't they? They wanted to be cured. The only people who were not attracted to him were those self-righteous, legalistic religionists, the ones whose goodness was hard and cold. They thought they were too good for the Son of God. You see, our light should be warm and attractive. It needs to be more like a fireplace and less like a light bulb. What is our purpose in the world? Be visible source of light, be attractive source of light, but then we need to be a light that calls attention to God and not ourselves. Verse 16 again says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good deeds. And does it say, praise you for your goodness? Is that what that says there? It's not, is it? It says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. You know, we should be like a spotlight aimed at God. What spotlight calls attention to itself? None of them do they. It's always pointed at somebody else. This gives the proper purpose for our good works. It's not for gaining righteousness. We can't earn it. We can only have God's favor. It's for giving praise to God that we do the good works. Our good works glorify God. Jesus again says, I am the light of the world there in John 8, verse 12. Jesus is truly the light of the world. But he told us there in Matthew that we are as well, didn't he? What kind of light are you shining in your corner of the world? Are you being that attractive light to people? Are they seeing that, well, you're different, you're that peculiar person, so to speak, that they talk about? I want what this Christian, this person has. I want to find out why they can be joyful in times where most people would fall and would curse and any other thing besides turn to God and say, you know what, everything is going to be all right no matter what. I have God on my side. If you're here this evening and maybe your light has went out, maybe it's dimmed a little, maybe you need to come back and have it recharged. Nothing wrong with that, is there? We all need recharged in our lives. That's why we come back to services, isn't it? Because maybe our week prior to was a rough one. And now we need to come back with our brothers and sisters in Christ and say, you know what? I need that big hug from you this morning. I need that fellowship with you. If you're here this evening and you need the prayers of the congregation, why not come as we stand and as we sing.
When with the Savior we enter the glory land, one